Let me make sure that my uh hold on. Okay, now it should be the right one. Let me know if you guys can hear me and see me. See and hear. Can you see and hear? Let me see. Let me turn my microphone up too. Hi, guys. Can y'all see and hear? Can you see and hear? See, hear. Okay. Thank you, Patricia. Yay! Now let me scroll back up. Let me scroll back up. Hey, Billy. Good to see you. Hey, Donnie. Hey, Crime Cafe. Grabbing some coffee. Yeah, I was grabbing coffee. And then, was trying to make Poppy go out to use the potty, but you guys, it's pouring the rain, pouring. She was like, "No, I ain't doing it. You can't make me go out there." No. Hey, Sherry, good to see you, honey. Oh my goodness, look at all the membership milestone chats. Wow. 11 months old today. Look at Margaret. And Donnie, member for 10 months, 9 months. Me and Sherry's making a baby. Yes, look at all the Crime Cafe babies. Lord, they're just popping out left and right like little bitty rabbits. You're older than me by a couple days, Margaret. It's not fair. I love it. Clean out your ears. Yeah, well, you know. Hey, Pickled Bird. It's good to see you. It's been a while. How are you doing? Hello. Patricia, speaking of Margaret cleaning out her ears, yeah, she's been getting those little um, flyers in the mail for hearing aids. Yay, I'm glad you're doing good. Ah, Kel's lurking from home while working from home. Good deal. Good deal. I got my fresh cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. My ears. Oh, I love it. Love it for me when I get a hair in my mouth. Yeah, Margaret said, I think Morgana signed me up for those flyers. Probably. Probably. You know, I don't know. She probably did, Patricia. Good to see you guys. I wanted to go live on Friday. I had full intentions of going live on Friday, but it felt like a Saturday. And it was just weird, right? It felt like a Saturday. Thursday felt like a Friday. And then Friday felt like a Saturday. Dale was home. Um, he didn't know whether I was going to go live or not. And hey, Miss King, good to see you. So Dale was home, of course, because it was Friday the 4th of July. And um, Kiddo knew that we were going to watch fireworks Friday night. So it was all like, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? And Dale was home. And yeah, it just, I wanted to just, enjoy the day with family. And um, we just hung out. Just hung out. It was a good Friday. And the kids loved the fireworks. The fireworks show was so stinking good. It was so good. Um, I don't know if I told you guys. The place where we went last year and this year, the dude that owns the property where the fireworks were shot off, it's where he lives, but it's a huge property with a big lake. And um he's friends with he's a mutual friend. Him and Dale have mutual friends. I'll just put it that way, I guess. So somebody Dale is really good friends with, knows this guy. Him and this guy are buddies, and this guy and a few other guys um, go together every year and spend a crap ton of money on fireworks. And last year, I think they spent somewhere between 5 and 10,000, and this year they spent 10,000 plus on fireworks, and it was epic. It was so good. And we had the best seats too because we didn't where everybody normally sits to watch the show. The way the wind direction blows, there's all the smoke between you and the actual fireworks. And so where we sat like at the very end, like way down the lake. Um and we didn't drive all the way up to where all the other cars were. There were cars where we were at and people were sitting outside watching, you know. But um we just pulled our chairs out and popped a squat right there. Not literally popped a squat. We didn't pop a squat, but we popped a seat. Right there, and then it was easy to get out, and it was just amazing. We had such a good time. Such a good time. Hey Gail, hey everyone. Sorry I didn't know you were live. Was listening to Aiden's hearing. Oh. Aiden's hearing. Why what am I not connecting? Aiden. What am I not connecting? The dots. What hearing? Aiden. Oh, Turtle Boy. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, okay. Got you. Turtle Boy. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I was like, wait a minute. What am I missing? Or was it a typo? Did she have a typo? Carney. Aiden. Carney. Anyway, yeah, that's his name, but it just went whoop. I was thinking like Stephan Stearns, Kohberger. I'm completely meh when it comes to Karen Reed. Y'all know that, so yeah. Yeah, Sherry. We haven't been on long. The first 5 minutes or so was um the music. I had to drop my husband off somewhere in my town around 9 p.m. and didn't even think about the fact that they do fireworks over there. It took me an hour and 50 minutes to get home. Lord have mercy. Ooh, I would have been big mad. I would have been big mad. Big mad. We were watching just this is just some random chit chat before we get started. We were watching on TV yesterday. No, it wasn't on TV, it was on YouTube. And we were watching it on the TV, but anyway, there's and I don't even know what the dude's channel name is. I could find him easily, but it was so interesting, okay? Um so there was this Dale was watching it, and then I was like, what is that? And he was telling me, and I started watching it. Well, then he got up to go take a shower, and I like continued to the next video because it was so cool. But the first one I think that we watched was something like 20 sandwiches everyone forgot existed or something like that. And it's always like very history related, okay? And they were talking about like pinto bean sandwiches. They were talking about peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches. They were talking about spam sandwiches. What all? I don't even know. Olive loaf sandwiches. There were so many though that I was like, wow. Like I would have. That's why we forgot about them. Well, I know Margaret, but some of them I was like, I would totally try that. Like I would totally try. whatever that was, you know? Some of them I was like, meh. But they were, you know, like pre World War times and, you know, during the Great Depression and when people didn't have money for meat. There was all kinds of stuff. I would try it. Peanut butter and mayonnaise, I would try it. Yeah. And then the other show that came on after that was 25 Poor Man Meals. And same thing, you know, they talked about when certain things were scarce, you know, they would have to make do with whatever. Um, One of them was bread soup. Like they would literally take, um, and did you know that that's how bread pudding started too? Bread pudding like we love bread pudding now, right? But when it originally became a thing, it was because people were so poor that they literally used every little thing that they had, and they used the bread, leftover stale bread, and that's how bread pudding became a thing. And but anyway, the bread soup, yeah, they would take it, put all kinds of seasonings, put it in there, and like cook it until it like became really, you know, starchy. And water pie was another one. They made water pie, and they took a pie crust and put in water, sugar, butter, vanilla, and baked it, and it came out like a custard sort of pie. Crazy. Crazy. Hold on a second. My husband is at Walmart. He's texting me. He says, I'm at Walmart. Okay, babe. So, anyway, yeah. It was very cool. Very interesting. Very interesting. I like to hear the history behind all of it. And the fried spam sandwich, yes. They talked about fried bologna. Now he's hold on, cakes, and we had bought Jolie's weekly supply of gluten-free snack cakes. Well, I guess Big Kiddo decided he was going to have a sweet tooth, and he dug into them and ate the vast majority of them, unbeknownst to anyone else in the house. He's good for that. He's really good for that. Um, so anyway, he's got to get some more of those for her. Mom used to make fried bologna sandwiches. Those were good. Yeah, I love fried bologna. Please, sir, might I have some more? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need so I can tell him. I can't remember off the top of my head. Hold on, folks. Hold on a minute. This is important business right here. Hold on, hold on. Um, Hold on. I got a cough again. Hold on. Okay. So now that we're 20 minutes into this, we will go ahead and get started with something that I wanted to talk about and watch. Oh, he meant chicken. I thought he meant lunch meat. Okay, babe. So, Kohberger and Stearns. For anyone that did not know already, if you didn't hear about this a few days ago, Stephan Stearns' trial has been like, or it's going to be starting on July 22nd. unless something else comes up to delay it. July 22nd is when Stephan Stern's SA trial is supposed to start. Okay, not the murder trial, but the SA one. So, he's wearing me out. Hold on a minute. He'll probably be and he's texting again already. Okay, love you, babe. All right, so July 22nd is when Stephan Stearns is going to trial. If the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, right? So that's what we're waiting for next. And then the 23rd is Kohberger's sentencing, which the judge allowed for 2 days just in case they need it because of all the victim impact statements. So I've got the 23rd on my calendar and the 24th on my calendar. I've got the 22nd on my calendar. I think I still have to take Kohberger off the calendar. But yeah, so lots of big things coming up. And that's still, excuse me, a ways away. Today's the 7th. Oh my gosh, my phone is driving me crazy. Hold on, let me put it back on Do Not Disturb. My phone lives on Do Not Disturb. So, anyway, it's still far enough away that I'm going to play that one by ear. I do want to stream it. I don't know if it's going to be a thing where I'm going to stream the entire thing. Plus, we have back to back. Like if Stern's trial starts on the 22nd, but now, wait a minute. I don't know if that's going to be opening statements or if that's going to be when jury selection starts. So, we might be cool on that for a few days. I don't know. We'll have to play it by ear, see what we'll do, but I'm definitely going to be streaming it and or recapping. So, anyway, I'm excited for both. Also, keep in mind, in 8, 9, 10, in 4 more days, the Amazon Prime series comes out for Idaho 4. And then somebody's going to have to remind me. Let me look at my calendar real quick. If it was the 14th when the book is released, the James Patterson book, or is that not it? Hold on. Let me open my calendar. All right. Okay. No, I was wrong. Yeah. Okay. Idaho 4 Amazon series starts on the 11th. So that's in 4 days. And then on the 14th, that's when the book is supposed to be released. I'll be here, the good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, right? And then, just a heads up, on the 15th, I will not be live at all that day because kiddo has a gastroenterologist appointment on the 15th. And a couple other appointments. They're all in the same building. So, no, those two are on another day. I take that back. There was a couple other things we were going to do that day, and I can't remember now, while we were in the city, the big city. So then, sentencing is on the 23rd into the 24th, possibly. And then I have to put 22nd, Stephan Stearns. Let me write that down real quick. Stephan Stearns. Let me get my other pair of seeing eyeglasses. Hold on, folks. Stephan. Now I can see. Aye, aye, aye. Stephan Stearns. Trial. But again, I don't know if that's going to be opening statements or if that's going to be when jury selection starts. I have not heard one way or the other. So, but today I wanted to watch this with you guys and see what y'all think. Ooh. Y'all know I love me some Vinnie Politan. So, hold on just a second. We are going to watch this. This was posted, what, 3 days ago? Okay. So, apologies if you've already seen this. But, yeah. I wanted to watch this. No, I did not, honey. Now he's asking about cheese. Did you get any mozzarella? No. Okay, so now present, share screen. Here we go. There it is. Yeah, y'all know I love Vinnie Politan. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's listen to this.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the tragic mass murder of 4 innocent University of Idaho students. Their killer took a deal from prosecutors and admitted to his crimes. Here's the story. In the stillness of a November night in 2022, terror struck a quiet college town. 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were brutally murdered in their off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. Stabbed as they slept, their young lives were stolen in a crime so savage it shook the nation. There were no screams heard, no calls made until morning. 2 roommates slept through the massacre. A trail of mystery and horror followed. No forced entry, no suspects, no answers. Weeks of fear gripped the campus as investigators combed through DNA, surveillance, and digital clues. Then came a criminology PhD student arrested across the country, accused of carrying out the slayings with surgical precision. A knife sheath left behind linked him to the scene. The case shocked the country, brilliant futures cut short, families shattered, and the community left to wonder how evil could creep in so quietly. And now that killer has admitted to his crimes inside a courtroom. And with the guilty plea, we now have the prosecutor in the case in court laying out the factual basis for what the prosecution and investigators believe happened. So it's really a sneak peek at what would have been the opening statement or part of the closing argument of the prosecution in the case. And during this hour, we're going to go through it section by section so we understand more fully what happened that night and what was going on with this defendant. Let's begin here as the prosecutor describes the actual killings of the 4 University of Idaho students.
The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogen and Kaylee Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogen's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single-source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single-source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed-blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen to where that sliding door is that I mentioned before.
Okay. Interesting description in the way that it happened, in the order in which it happened, which brings us to the first question.
Oh, hey, Chrissy. Good to see you, girl. Hello. How are you? Hi, kiddo. Hey, Chrissy. We're talking about. I wanted to watch this with Vinnie Politan because he's talking about the possible target of Kohberger, you know. But then I also want to discuss Stephan Stearns and his upcoming trial. So, if you didn't already know, Stephan Stearns' trial is set for July 22nd. And yeah, I want to talk about that for a minute too. So, but hey, I'm glad you're here. It's good to see you.
In our investigation tonight, were Maddie and Kaylee the targets? The description was pretty clear that he came in and went directly upstairs. Here to help answer the question, retired FBI agent Stuart Fillmore and Brandy Churchwell, host of the 13th Juror podcast and Crime Junkie Jury. Thank you.
I love me some Brandy Churchwell.
Both for being here. Stuart, what are your thoughts here about the targets? You know, he's obviously knows something about this house and enters, they believe, on that sliding door and goes immediately upstairs.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I guess we won't ever really know why he did this, but I know in his paperwork he had to file his own factual basis, although I doubt there's going to be a lot of details in there other than he did it. But as far as were they targets or not, you know, I think there was video available of that house, like for listing purposes, and so he might have got some idea about the interior of the house from that. But, you know, it was a big risk. What I think ultimately this is going to be is you have a guy who was a PhD student. He had studied criminals, how they did their crimes, why they did their crimes. And what I think that he had decided, he had also studied Ted Bundy, seemed to make somewhat of a fixation on Bundy. I think he just thought he's going to recreate Bundy's attack on the Chi Omega house at Florida State University, only he's smarter than Bundy and he'll get away with it. And so he just, that was what's in his mind. And I think he got into the house, he went up to the third floor and just worked his way down. Who knows why he stopped when he did? That's what I think it was. But unfortunately, we'll just never know. I don't think if he had specifically targeted someone in the house.
Brandy, the way the prosecutor described it, he went upstairs first, and then on his way down, Xana was awake, had gotten the DoorDash order, and confronted her and took her out next.
So there's a little bit of back and forth from different people that I've heard, where they talk about where he actually was at when he stabbed Xana the first time, like the first stab. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, so take this with a grain of salt, that Xana's blood and her DNA was found upstairs or on the stairs or something. So it's a if that's true, which I'm not saying it is, but if it's true, allegedly, then that would mean he stabbed her either upstairs or in the stairwell the first time, and she ran to the bedroom, and he finishes the job there. So Patricia said, I heard the same. We will see when everything is unsealed. Yeah, and they are unsealing it. I did hear that after the sentencing, everything will be unsealed. So we will get the details soon and very soon. So that's good.
And then took out Ethan, who was inside the room, and then left, despite the fact that Dylan seems to open her door. So there are more people in the house. What are your thoughts about Maddie and Kaylee being the specific targets of this killer?
You know, I honestly think that there's a lot of evidence that suggests that they were his targets, specifically Maddie. If you kind of start from the beginning and work your way through the evidence and the events, we know that this wasn't a random house, right? Kohberger followed these girls on Instagram. We've heard that he liked a ton of Maddie's pictures on Instagram. So for sure he could have been looking at what she was doing, where she was going, and things like that. We've also heard that he had pictures saved in his phone from Instagram of one of the girls and had sent multiple DMs to her trying to strike up conversations, but never got a response. He went to the restaurant, potentially went to the restaurant where they worked and things like that. So that's all one thing. But aside from that, there's also the phone evidence. His cell phone was hitting on the tower close to the house on King Road more than a dozen times leading up to that night. But I think the biggest piece of evidence that Maddie and potentially Kaylee were the targets is exactly what the prosecutor said today. He entered through that sliding door, which would put him in the kitchen area. There are 2 other bedrooms on that floor, and he passed directly by one of them and goes straight upstairs to Maddie's room. And then the sheath is, of course, found under her body, which suggests that's where the attacks began. And, I think maybe he thought that she was going to be isolated up there. I don't think that he anticipated everybody else being in that house. Kaylee had recently moved out. She was also driving a new car. So he may not have even known that she was in there. And, by the time he got there, he didn't see the other roommates arriving back. I think that he parked on that hill to look into that upstairs room, thinking that he could see what was going on with her, maybe look in the window or the door right there to look into her window. And I think that he thought she was going to be isolated, and he didn't anticipate all those other people. I think it got out of control, and he had to, get out of there quickly.
I think, Brandy, you make a great point.
I don't know. I'm struggle with that about whether he didn't know that the others were home. Because one, he would have seen the DoorDash person. So who else would be ordering DoorDash if he thinks that Maddie's asleep? You know what I mean? And she's the only one in the house. So I don't know that I buy that. Um, but the when they talk about Kohberger and the girls, especially Maddie, having, connection on Instagram, I we haven't confirmed that. Nobody's confirmed that to my knowledge. I think that a lot of people have speculated that that he had. I had heard that there were a lot of messages that he'd sent a lot of messages through DM, but she never replied. Whether she's seen them and just ignored them, or whether she didn't see them at all, I don't know. But I do feel like Maddie was his target. I do feel like he didn't know that Kaylee was going to be there. And so I'm wondering if he knew that Xana and Ethan were home, but he knows that they're on that second floor and that Maddie should have been the only one upstairs alone, and that he could have done what he did and gotten out, that he would have thought that he could have gone up there, killed Maddie, and then left. He wasn't anticipating running into Xana, is my opinion. But Patricia said, we heard all that about Instagram and everything, but didn't the prosecutor say at the hearing that they only knew that his phone pinged in their area between July and November? Oh, I can't remember the dates. Heard all that about Instagram and everything, but didn't the prosecutor say at the hearing that they only knew that his phone pinged in their area? I mean, I think that they said that that's the only, that there was no proof, that no evidence that he was actually in the house, but that his phone pinged there, I think maybe is what he said, if that's what you're talking about, Patricia. But to me, I'm also like, you say there's no evidence that he was in the house, but yet there's a knife sheath with his DNA on it. That's evidence enough for me. I mean, I know that would be, you could call that circumstantial, I guess, but I don't know.
Which about Kaylee had graduated early and had actually
Right.
come back because she was so happy. She had purchased her first car on her own and was kind of showing her friends and reminiscing with them, getting ready to leave and begin her professional life and start her career. Stuart, so then coming down the stairs and encountering Xana and then Ethan there, my guess is they are potential witnesses at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something at this point, it probably forced his hand. He didn't expect to find, her there. But again, this is what doesn't make sense to me is, all these kids were out late. They had been at parties. It could have that house could have easily been full of kids that come back, after being at partying. They, it's not unusual they'd come back for an after party, which is great. That's what you should do when you're young. So yeah, he took a huge risk on this thing. I know he'd circled around 2 or 3 times, and from different vantage points you can see in there, but he still ultimately didn't know who's in there.
That's true. He didn't know who's in there, but you can tell that the lights are all off in the house. If they were having an after party, the lights would be on and you would see vehicles there, right? I don't know.
And so really probably when he encountered Xana, it's just something he had to do it. And at that point, I get, we learned today that Ethan was asleep. So who knows why he necessarily did that, but but unfortunately, I keep going back to this. I don't know that we're going to know this because he's not going to be forced to tell the truth on it.
Right. Right, not forced to explain exactly what happened and how it happened.
So when they talk about Ethan being asleep, I know that he had been, but I wonder, did he wake up? You know, have they talked about whether Ethan had any defensive wounds or not? You know, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine that. I mean, we've heard that Dylan said she heard crying coming from Xana's room. So even if Ethan was sloshed out drunk, cold drunk, you know, you would still think that he would wake up to someone being murdered in the room where he's at. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I don't know that. I don't know. If he was asleep and didn't move, I could see Bryan just leaving. But you know what's cool, though? What's cool now is we don't have to say allegedly about Bryan anymore, right? Because he pled guilty. So we don't have to say that Bryan Kohberger allegedly killed these children. He did kill them. He is guilty. So that feels nice to be able to say that. But anyway, hey Cherie, good to see you.
Guests are staying with us. Coming up next, could they have caught him without the knife sheath?
That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath.
I don't know that they would have been able to prove anything without that knife sheath, personally.
Interview with a killer. Marathon starting Friday, 11.
November 13th, 20. The state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th, 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath.
Right, Miss King, yeah. I don't know, you know? And hopefully we'll get those sorts of answers whenever they unseal the documents, right? Hopefully we'll get those kinds of answers. I can't wait for that.
As the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders.
The knife sheath, so significant in all of this. It's been a crucial piece of evidence from the beginning, and obviously the defendant, the killer, realized that and was trying to replace it afterwards, knowing that he left the scene without the knife sheath. I want you to take a listen to the prosecutor, who again was laying out so much inside the courtroom, here talking about the investigation and how they were able to track down the murderer. Take a listen.
Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Kohberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation.
Oh, Chrissy, right. Chrissy says, I know he pled guilty, but I just found a whole population of people who swear the surviving housemates did it. I was too stunned to dig deeper on their theory, but they are convinced. Yeah, I'm not buying that. Not even a little bit. Mm-mm. There would have been evidence of that, and there has been no evidence of that at all. And the people who do believe that are, I believe, conspiracy theorists, you know, which is, there's nothing wrong with being a conspiracy theorist. I'm one. a lot of the times. But I'm not buying that. Not even a smidgen. Not even a skosh.
Department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Logan's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene.
It was the DNA on the knife sheath. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Could they have caught him without the knife sheath? What if the murderer didn't drop the knife sheath or didn't leave the knife sheath behind with the DNA? Could they have caught him? Helping us with our investigation still, Stuart Fillmore and Brandy Churchwell. Brandy, what are your thoughts on that issue? Because we've been saying it all along. It's such an important piece of evidence. It was the piece of evidence that was going to lock down this defendant at trial. But what if they didn't have it?
Yeah, I mean, could they have caught him? Yes. Could they have proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt? That's a whole different ballgame. I mean, that knife sheath is the only kind of direct evidence, you know, that they really have. So while it isn't the only evidence, it is huge for this case. I mean, without that, they have the videos of the white Elantra, you know, that going back and forth. So I mean, that's really where everything starts. So, you know, the video of the Elantra going back and forth speeds off right around the time the murders, you know, are ending. They match the description, the bushy eyebrows, you know, around the same height, that type thing. But all of that is highly, highly circumstantial. And they did definitely build their case from there. I mean, they have the following of the social media and the phone being in, you know, the area. But even that, you know, without that knife sheath, he could say, well, yeah, I drive out there all the time. That's nothing weird for me. You'll see that my phone's been there before. You would have the search history where he bought the knife, but you wouldn't have the evidence that that's the knife that was used. You have the evidence of the ski mask, but it's, you know, it gets cold, it snows, you might need a ski mask. So I think without that, everything else is so circumstantial, and juries like a nice, clean story. And there are things about this that just aren't answered, you know, that not calling 911 until the next day and things like that. And juries can really hold on to things, you know, like that might not have huge significance to the actual case, but have questions in juries' minds. So without something like that that's so solid, I think that could definitely give enough reasonable doubt to acquit. So I think that was probably the biggest thing they have.
Stuart, how do they identify him without his DNA? They've got a car without a license plate. It's actually an out-of-state vehicle at the time, a Pennsylvania case. Do you think they're able to identify him and catch him without the DNA and all the DNA work that was done with the help of, by the way, your old agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
Yeah, Benny, and I will say I've done a couple of those trash pulls before, and it can generate some very valuable evidence, but it's not a fun job to do. Yes, I think they could have found him. They could have identified him. It would have, it would have required, just old-fashioned police work, because you have the white Elantra, you have the DoorDash driver, remember? So that's a pretty good starting point. But it's still, you're going to have to eliminate a lot of different people and go through a lot of different things to do it. And I agree 100% with Brandy that, yeah, you have a compelling case, but without that knife sheath, I don't think you're going to get a conviction. I had a public corruption case one time that involved a possible murder that looked like a staged suicide. And there's a lot of compelling evidence around it. But in fact, the prosecutor said, I can easily get an indictment on this case, but I don't think we would win a trial. So I think it's the same thing here. The knife in this case puts you over the top.
Brandy, why do you think it was there? Do you think he left it on purpose, or do you think he lost it in the struggle? Did he panic? Was the adrenaline going too quickly for him? How do you think it ended up there?
I personally think that he lost it in the struggle. Like I mentioned earlier, I really don't think, and we'll never know for sure, but just me speculating, I really don't think that he thought that Kaylee was going to be in there. And the way that we've heard them describe that room, Maddie was on the outside, like the part closest on the bed to the door, and I believe Kaylee was on the other side. So I think that he didn't anticipate her being there, and I believe that, if she's fighting back, if she's, because the area where she was, she kind of would have been trapped. She would have had to try to fight to get away. And I think that in whatever happened in that moment.
Just a little addition to that, what Brandy Churchwell just said, they did say, even Steve Gonzalez, Kaylee's dad, said that the position that Kaylee was in, she was basically in a corner. Because the way the bed was positioned in the bedroom, Kaylee was sleeping on the inside, closest to the wall. She didn't have anywhere to go. He had her, basically backed into a corner. And, so, yeah. And I've heard, I don't know if they'll talk about it in this or not, and just a little bit of a trigger warning here. I hate even saying this. But Steve Gonzalez also confirmed that it kills me to say this, that Bryan Kohberger basically bashed Kaylee's face in, and that she could have potentially died from those injuries, let alone the knife stabbings. So yeah, that is devastating to me anyway. So, it was a very tiny room. Awful, yeah. In a tiny room, Kaylee's mom had said that something like, I think early on, she had said something like, literally the bed was about the only piece of furniture that you could fit in there, because it was so small. So
There was some kind of enough force for him to, for it to come off in some way. And also, it's his DNA on that snap part. So I feel like the only way it could have come off is if it came off during some kind of struggle in that room. And I think that he had thought he planned everything out, but didn't anticipate on things kind of going haywire like that. And so he tried to get out of there. And I don't think he even realized that he didn't have it until he was gone.
Stuart, what are your thoughts about how this happened? He left, this guy has been studying this stuff. He understands it. And he ends up leaving his DNA at the scene in the sheath that held the murder weapon.
Yeah, well, Vinny, as far as we know, at least, he had never murdered before. So, it's one thing to kind of fantasize about this stuff and play it out in your mind and do all this, reading about how criminals do it. But when you actually go to kill another human being, it's a completely different process. And again, I agree with Brandy that he probably didn't anticipate that Kaylee would be in Maddie's room. That added a whole layer of complications. And, and the other thing is the dog. The dog was in Kaylee's room. So, at the start of this, was the dog in there too? There's just a whole lot of factors, unfortunately, that I just don't think we're gonna know. We're gonna have to speculate about.
Big thanks tonight, Stuart Fillmore, Brandy Churchwell, 13th Juror Podcast, Crime Junkie Jury on YouTube. Thank you both so much. Up next, what was going through the killer's mind after the murders. I'm Vinny Politan. We continue our investigation of the horrific, senseless mass murder of 4 young adults from the University of Idaho. Their killer was facing a trial and a potential death sentence, but he got a deal, so he admitted to his crimes. Here's the story. On the frigid night of November 13th, 2022, in the college town of Moscow, Idaho, 4 promising students were brutally slain in a crime that shattered the peace of a sleepy campus. Inside their off-campus rental home, Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogen were attacked in bed, their lives stolen in a vicious assault. On the floor below, Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle met the same fate. Xana believed to have fought back with her dying breath. The killer moved with eerie silence, bypassing 2 other roommates who survived the night unaware. No one heard screams. No one saw a shadow. By the time help was called, the sun had already risen on a house soaked in horror. Panic gripped the town. Weeks passed before a 28-year-old criminology PhD student was arrested, linked by DNA on a knife sheath left behind. And now, this killer has admitted to his crimes inside a courtroom. And while he admitted to his crimes inside the courtroom, he did not himself speak and tell everyone what he did, lay out the factual basis of what happened here. There was a proffer done by the prosecutor, which really was a piece probably of his opening statement that he would have delivered at the trial, if there in fact was a trial here. So let's continue to listen to Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, talk about the case. And here he's talking about what happens after the mass murder.
At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, the defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walenta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, the defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning.
Some interesting parts of all that being described, especially the way he's leaving at a high rate of speed, almost out of control. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. What was going through the killer's mind after the murders?
Oof, wouldn't we all love to know the answer to that question? I mean, apparently 6 hours-ish after the fact, we know that Bryan Kohberger took a selfie of himself going, which was pretty telling that he, pulled it off, done a great job, you know? Ick.
Is he in control? Is he out of control? Does he have a plan? Is he improvising? What is he thinking about? Here to help answer that question, clinical and forensic psychologist Dr. Gary Brucato. He's also the author of a book you need to read, The New Evil. And Annie Elise, host of Serialistly, I think I got it right, Serialistly podcast. She's also the creator of the true crime YouTube channel 10 to Life. Thank you both for being here. Dr. Brucato, what are your thoughts about what could have been going through his mind after these murders?
Well, based on having spoken to and read the accounts of or interviews that have been done with many offenders who do similar things, we have a little bit of a clue what was probably going on. And there's evidence that also, in this particular case, that points us towards what may have happened. It seems that there are two things going on simultaneously. One is the pragmatic, which is sort of needing to get out of Dodge, being, sort of swimming in adrenaline, speeding away, possibly, nearly hitting somebody, in doing so, forgetting the sheath, coming back for it, all of that. But then there's this other aspect, which seems to have to do with a phenomenon that we see in serial type offenders, where the idea is that after an offense, the individual is now experiencing a kind of post-orgasmic feeling of relief and kind of excitement, where the person now feels that they're back on some kind of pedestal that they had been knocked off of in terms of their ego. And we see this, of course, in the thumbs up photo and the spring that he had in his step in the days after the murder, according to people who saw him at school afterwards. And that is very typical of people where the motivation has a kind of psychosexual quality to it, and it's all about that restoration of ego with a sense of domination and control over other people.
Let's take a listen to the prosecutor describe that moment you just talked about, Dr. Gary Brucato, involving the selfie and also him returning to the scene.
Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock.
Oh, do you mean Annie Elise, Patricia?
In the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone.
Gotcha.
In what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up.
Annie Elise, your thoughts about the actions of this killer after the murders?
I think starting with the selfie, he clearly looks very proud. He has his thumbs up, he's smiling, he looks freshly clean, put together. But then following that is where I believe we start to see the spiral, because not long after that, the information about the Elantra is released. And I think that starts to trigger some paranoia with him. Early on, we had heard about the social media account Papa Rogers, which was posting in the Facebook groups, posting about information that had not been released to the public at that point. One of the main posts being, could the killer have left the knife sheath behind? That was a detail nobody knew about yet. This was still before the end of the year. And so there was a lot of suspicion that he was the one who created that account, not only because the photo in the AI image looked like him, but because whoever this user was knew a lot of the information about the crime that had not been released. He hadn't even been arrested at this point. Come to find out, too, that he did, in fact, study under Elliot Rodger, the famous incel who went on a murder spree. So the account was believed to be some sort of ode to Elliot Rodger, because he does have, as disturbing as it is, a huge fan club out there of incels.
Did you guys know that? I remember this early on. She is different now, Miss King. I agree. A little bit different. What was I going to say? Oh, the Papa Rogers. So early on, right? Early on, people all over the chats and like forums and stuff were talking about this Papa Rogers and this Papa Rogers account on Facebook, who was continually posting like questions, random questions, um, like could the killer have left the knife sheath behind? Things like she said that nobody knew about at that point. Nobody knew at that point that the knife sheath had been left behind. And then there were other things I can't remember um, off the top of my head, but it was very strange, very strange. And so a lot of people think that that Papa Rogers account on Facebook even was Bryan Kohberger. And if it wasn't, then it was awful coincidental. So that's all I'm saying. It was weird.
Cells. So I think he's posting in the group, sussing out information. What do people know? Getting hyper paranoid. And then shortly after that, he cleans the car, disassembles it, as we heard today, cleaning every nook and cranny, putting evidence into bags, wearing plastic gloves in the middle of the night. And I think that's when he really started spiraling and realizing that he was most likely going to get caught for this. And fun fact that right when he was arrested, that Papa Roger account wiped, deleted.
Wow. Let me ask you, Dr. Brucato, the knife sheath, was that panic, or is there, because some people are wondering, could he have done this on purpose?
I think it's giving too much credit to this offender to think that he was some kind of mastermind that left things on purpose or all of that, because, of course, it makes a lot more sense that what really happened was that he gets probably interrupted, I think, by Xana, and drops it and goes after her, and then is now on the second floor. So I think it's important in the story of this guy to understand that he probably went in there with an intention that simply didn't get played out, because everything did not go as he had planned. It has been my sense for a long time that he went in there with the intention to target one victim, probably sexually, despite being extremely inadequate and probably not being able to carry out what it is he had fantasized about. But everything went haywire. And you've got Kaylee there unexpectedly. Xana pops in. He's chased downstairs. He certainly doesn't expect a male to be there. So then you wind up with this sort of extra anger toward the male, with this totally unnecessary time-wasting activity of cutting the hamstrings in this weird experimental way before he leaves. And I think that has a quality that we see in some serial killers, where despite that you need to be getting out of Dodge and it isn't necessary for the commission of the crime, you do this thing that's just titillating to you psychologically, that we call a signature, or that you just sort of do to try something out. I also think it's very, very interesting to point something out quickly.
Dr. Gary Brucato, can you hold that thought? We're going to take a short break. We've got another segment. Dr. Gary Brucato, Annie Elise staying with us. Still to come. Was the killer looking for a target or stalking a target?
Hey, Morgana Banana. Hi, beautiful. He was talking about Ethan's legs. Yeah, that's another thing that I'm sure we'll hear more about when the documents are unsealed. Hi, sweet Morgana. Hello, dearie. So, he was talking about the, like, sexual components to that whole thing, you know? And I was watching, I can't remember. I watched so many videos over the weekend. And today, even this morning, I was watching some stuff, trying to find some stuff to share with you guys. It might have been, I think it was Grizzly's channel. It was, because now I remember the word being popped up on the screen. But started with a P, IQU something. I don't remember the word. But there is some sort of like thing that people have called PIQU, whatever the rest of the word is. And was it like Picard or something like that? I can't remember. Anyway, it has to do with people having this weird obsession with like sexual pleasure in stabbing people. Creepy. That's super creepy. But she was saying something like, even though there was no actual like physical SA on the victims, there could have been when he was stabbing them. But we'll never know, right? You never know. I know, Margaret, it's weird. If I find that, I'll look for that. Let me go find that real quick. And I'll let you guys hear it for yourself. Creepy, weird. We'll continue this. This has got about 10 minutes left. And then we'll play that part about Grizzly. I just got to go find it. Okay, let's go.
Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times.
We want to understand the mindset behind your action.
I did it. You think you'd Friday.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
That heartbreaking 911 call, those poor kids. The prosecutor, we've learned a lot from the prosecutor in laying out some of the facts in the case, including what was happening before the murders, in the lead up to the murders. Take a listen.
Back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing in his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Bryan Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was a apartment address in Pullman.
23 times in 4 months in the neighborhood of the house where he committed the mass murder. That brings us to the next question in our investigation. Was the killer looking for a target or stalking a target? Still with us, Dr. Gary Brucato and Annie Elise. Annie, what are your thoughts on that? What is he doing there so often?
I think it's both. I think he was looking for a target when he bought the knife earlier in the spring, and then he moved there at the end of June, and just 9 days later is when the stalking began, the 23 pings in that 4-month period. So I think he was looking for one, and then I believe he found his target, Maddie, and began stalking her. In addition to the pings, we know that when he entered the King Road house, he went directly to Maddie's room, indicating he knew the layout, he knew where to go. We also heard that Kaylee's injuries were far more severe, which I'm not an expert, but in my opinion, that means there was a lot of anger. She got in the way of his plan. He was retaliating. We also heard today how when the prosecutor was speaking, they say he did enter the house with intent to kill, but that they were not going to represent that he intended to commit all of the murders. So I interpret that, again, as he went in there with the intention to kill Maddie, was surprised by Kaylee, surprised by Xana, surprised by Ethan, and had no choice but to commit the quadruple murder. But I don't believe that was the plan.
Dr. Gary Brucato, what are your thoughts there about all these trips that he's making in the lead up to the attack?
I think it's important to understand that the type of offender that I suspect this is, the fantasy-driven offender who kills for no reason other than psychosexual gratification, that type of person has in mind what I've called in literature and so forth, a prototype. That's the kind of original person who hurt you, or group of people who hurt you. And then you go out like a casting agent to find the person who fits the part. And we see that kind of trolling behavior in serial killers. On the Dateline episode that shared a lot of information about what was on his phone, for example, we see a lot of young women who are conspicuously similar in appearance to the victims, or certainly Maddie, who I think was central to this. It does appear that he had a certain prototype in mind and then honed in on a particular individual. This is intriguing when we think about, for example, his being inspired by somebody like Ted Bundy, who infamously killed scores of women who were often physically alike. Because over and over again, it's the killing of the same individual. As a fascinating point, when we think about overlaps with Bundy and the mimicking and sort of copying his processes, I had a sort of eureka moment earlier when I was making an appearance on the Interview Room podcast, that today is the anniversary of when Ted Bundy's execution was vacated by the state of Florida for the sorority house murders. And so 39 years to the day after his potential hero, Bundy, is cleared, execution is taken off the table for a sorority house series of murders. We have this guy doing exactly the same thing. And this is one of those coincidences that is absolutely fantastic to me, and almost makes you wonder how it could be a coincidence.
Right. Yeah. Is it a coincidence? You know, the timing of all this, that's such a great point. We have a couple minutes left here. Let me ask you, Annie, what lingering questions do you have in all of this?
I would like to know where the murder weapon is. I would like to know how he was able to leave without a trace of blood in his vehicle, although I know he cleaned it. What was he wearing? We know that after the 4th murder, he was exhausted and sat down in the chair before leaving. And so I would like to know those questions. And although I don't believe there is necessarily a why, I would be curious to hear from him his reasoning for why.
So would I, honey. So would I. Hey, Mary Lou, good to see you. Good to see you. Husband's home. I was just trying some cereal. He bought some gluten-free Cheerios, apple cinnamon Cheerios. They're really good. They taste good. Pretty yummy.
Yeah, Dr. Gary Brucato, do you think these are questions that will ever be answered by him? Because you know he's going to get the requests, and I don't know if the Department of Corrections will allow it, but he's going to get requests to speak, to interview, whether it's with law enforcement or with members of the media or public. What are your thoughts about learning more of these details?
Well, when we understand that everything, virtually everything was done here was some variation on the theme of dominating, controlling, and manipulating other people to feel superior to them and compensate for insecurity, we know that the same thing is going to happen, as it often does with killers, when you go in and ask them stories about their fantasies and motivations and so forth. They enjoy fibbing to you, holding things back, making transactional bargains, getting attention, so forth. And so everything that is said just has to be taken with a grain of salt in terms of the details. But underneath those little fibs and exaggerations and so forth, there are these kernels, these themes that reveal that the individual is motivated in that way. I would say much of what he is probably going to say is going to be limited and manipulative, and the real fantasy stuff is going to stay forever in his brain for his own private enjoyment.
Dr. Gary Brucato and Annie Elise, incredible analysis. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. The victims' families will have an opportunity to give their impact statements at sentencing. Unfortunately, for some of these family members, the impact isn't just from the crimes. It's also from the way they've been treated along the way by those in charge of prosecuting the killer, and that is unconscionable. Getting re-victimized by the system. Their voices are important, and our system should go above and beyond to listen to them and to serve them. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.
Okay, so they let Lori open her big Kool-Aid mouth. So funny. Waiting for a little snow, Mary Lou. What in the world? You'll be waiting for a little while. You'll be waiting for a little while. All right, I found the I found what I was looking for over here on Grizzly. Oh, shoot. I did not mean to do that. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, you want some snow, huh? I don't blame you. All right, where'd it go? Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Stay back, kiddo. Go over there. Go, go, go. Go see Dad for a minute. Go. Somehow or another, I made my screen and it's all messed up. Hold on a minute. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Daggone it. How do I get out of here? Let me hit the escape button, see if that works. And that did not work. Darn it. Rain. We got a lot of rain a while ago. A lot of rain. A lot of rain. Hold on, folks. I'll get my poop together here in just a second. Hold on. Share. Grizzly. Started cleaning out and organizing my drawers while listening, and now I'm at the point where I'm 3/4 of the way done, and I'm tired of it. Oh. You're staring into my soul when you look into the camera. Hi, Spence. How are you doing today? I rarely ever look at the camera because the camera's right there, and now I'm looking at the camera. most of the time I'm looking at my screen. Okay. Add. There we go. Okay. So, you guys, I was talking about that weird word. Whispering. What can I do that's ASMR-ish? Hold on. Let me tap on my phone. Sorry. Okay. I've been watering with my jugs ancestors noon. And still not done. No, Morgana. No, ma'am. What do you mean watering with your jugs ancestors? Noon. And still not done. Mary Lou, honey. Honey. Mary Lou's keyboard is not, she said, I don't know where that came from. I love you. I don't know. She's talking about her jugs ancestors. I'm like, daggone. I want to know who your jugs ancestors are. That cracks me up. That cracks me up. All right. So we're going to listen to this little weird part here. I'll let Grizzly explain it. So I don't have to. But let me make sure I'm in the right spot.
Documents, DM and BF were certainly not asleep. You know. That was confusing. Also, I do want to add that there is something known as picarism, which it has a sexual component where someone is aroused by stabbing someone. In fact, the terminology for it is picarism, refers to a sexual interest in penetrating the skin of another person with sharp objects. So it could have a sexual component, but I understand that he's saying it wasn't SA. During the course of this, one of the roommates awoke, looked out her door, not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant who was dressed in black.
We're actually going to watch that. I've got it pulled up. Hold on. The channel is called Asget Industries. We've shared some of her stuff before. And I think it was Kohberger. But I'm not positive. I think it was Kohberger's stuff to do with Kohberger. All right, so let me share this tab. I don't know, Gail. She has no glasses on, so she can't see what she's typing. But with her jugs ancestors, yeah. I need to know who her jugs ancestors are. Like, how old are her jugs ancestors? I love you, Mary Lou. I'm I'm making fun lovingly. I'm not making fun of you like, ha ha ha. I just think you're the cutest thing ever. All right. So we are going to watch this real quick. It looks like it's about 12 minutes in length. This is the one I watched earlier. Right, Spins. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to turn my camera off because I don't trust my kiddo. Their jugs are dry. Lunchtime, said Margaret. It was Patricia's a really good breakdown. There are a couple things that I feel like isn't quite right, and I'll mention them when we get to the part. But um, oh, I don't know, Cherie. Probably. All right. So I'm gonna start this real quick, but I want to give her credit. I'm gonna give Grizzly credit too for showing her picarism thing. Hold on, folks. Mary Lou, just like the rest of my family, no help at all. Asget Industries. Okay. Video credit here. Now, we'll watch this.
Released this full illustration of the Idaho 4 crimes, showing Kohberger's movements. It's put together by evidence given to me by media companies like Netflix and others, including more recently Dateline, who hired me to do their 3D modeling for their project. I'm going to include a lot of information into this episode.
That's
where you
pretty
can
cool.
see exactly what took place from moment to moment.
Did she say ABC hired her to do the 3D modeling?
Information into this episode where you can see exactly what took place from moment to moment. Let's get started.
Oh shoot, wait. I didn't go back far enough.
Including more recently Dateline, who hired me to do their 3D modeling for their project.
Oh, Dateline. Okay. What, baby? Yum. Do you like those, Jolie? Are they yummy? Here, let me have a couple more. Thank you. Those are yummy. The gluten-free Cheerios are yummy.
I'm going to include a lot of information into this episode where you can see exactly what took place from moment to moment. Let's get started. In this illustration, we're going to start at 3:30 a.m. At this time, everyone is asleep except for Xana. Looking inside the home, we can see where everybody was. Starting at the 3rd floor, we can see where Maddie and Kaylee were sleeping. Maddie was sleeping on the edge of the bed, while Kaylee was sleeping near the wall. As we go out and drop down to the 2nd floor, we can see Dylan's room at the edge of the bed, while Maddie was sleeping on the edge of the bed, while Kaylee was...
Okay, so I wanted to stop it real quick. Oh, yeah, Mary Lou, we buy those. She loves them. Loves them. And they're really good. Like, I wouldn't know they were gluten-free had someone not... If I didn't already know they were gluten-free, I wouldn't have realized it. Patricia, you tell me, honey, at the ripe old age of about 35 or 40 is when I finally was like, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to be like one of those kids that you see running around with mismatched socks. I never wear socks that match. There's no point. There's no point. The only way you can wear socks that match is if you throw away every pair of socks that you have and buy all new, but they all have to be the very same kind. No difference. You either buy all black ankle, no-show, whatever, or all white ones. Or all gray, whatever. But you can't have any other pair of socks other than just that kind. You can buy multiples of those, obviously, but that's the only way you're ever going to find and have matched socks. Just saying. So the reason I paused this video here is because remember when I was talking earlier about what Steve Gonzalez had said about how Kaylee was basically like, hemmed up in a corner. So there you see, Maddie's the one laying on the right side edge of the bed facing outward into the room, and Kaylee is the one on the other side of the bed facing the wall in the corner. And so in that position, she didn't have anywhere to go. You know, I mean, it's not like she could scoot out of the foot of the bed. She could have tried, but depending on where Kohberger was at, she was probably just fighting him to get off Maddie, you know? Mary Lou said, my grandson told his mom when he was 6 that it was a waste of time because no one sees them. That's true. That's true, too. He's 22, still not matching. There you go. I'm telling you, there's no point in it. There's no point in it anymore. Nope. So, yeah, that's the position that Kaylee would have been in, and basically stuck in a corner.
Sleeping near the wall. As we go out and drop down to the second floor, we can see Dylan's room directly under Maddie's room. Continuing across the living room onto the other side of the home, we see Xana's room. She's sitting in bed scrolling on her phone while Ethan sleeps next to her. Minutes ago, she had just finished ordering.
Now, this part, I don't know that I can get along with this part. When the way that they have the bed positioned in Xana's room, I don't believe it was positioned that way. I think the bed was positioned with the foot of the bed facing the door up against the wall, kind of like the same in Maddie's room. Because there's been, word on the street that Ethan was laying up against the wall. And so that the position of the bed would have been either further to the right in that corner, like the way it is now, but pushed further to the right, or the bed would have been turned and placed along that far wall. Oh, wait. I'm thinking. If that is the right side of the house, the blood that was coming down the outside foundation, quit, baby, I think was on that right side of the house. I can't remember if it was on the right side of the house or on the back end of the house. Oh, I can't remember. Does anybody remember? Can anyone remember where the blood came down the foundation outside? Was it on that right side of the house? Yes, Patricia. So the way what we're looking at right now is the front of the house from the street view. And the blood coming down the foundation was either on that right side of the house looking at the front of the house, or around the corner and on the back, like under the patio, the upper patio, the balcony part. I can't remember. Miss King says she thinks it was the side of the house. So if that's the case, then the bed would have been positioned either to the right with the foot facing either towards us or towards the door to her bedroom. You see what I'm saying? Let me see if you guys can see. I'm circling like right here. I think the headboard would have either been here and the bed would have came along this wall and Ethan would have been sleeping up against this wall, or he would have been sleeping up against this wall. So the bed would have either been this way here or this way here. But if it was on the side of the house, then it would have been here. So, anyway, hopefully I didn't confuse you all.
Ordering DoorDash and has all the lights on while she waits. The last roommate to mention is Beth, whose room is on the first floor, directly below the living room. As most of them all sleep, Kohberger pulled into the neighborhood for the first time this night at precisely 3:30 a.m. We know this due to a home security camera that captures the intersection at precisely. The last roommate to mention is Beth, ordering DoorDash and has all the lights on while she waits.
Yeah, if you see whenever it backs away from there, you can see the window on the second floor to the right whenever the camera pans out away from the house.
The last roommate to mention is Beth, whose room is on the first floor, directly below the living room. As most of them all sleep, Kohberger pulled into the neighborhood for the first time this night at precisely 3:30 a.m. We know this due to a home security camera that captures the intersection and records the coming and going of anybody that enters that neighborhood. As we continue, Kohberger drives past the home and notices that all the lights on the second floor are still on. He drives on and loops around the apartment complex building. Because of the home security timestamp, we're able to know how long it took to drive this path. On his first pass, it took him 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and this is him leaving on the first pass. Now let's look at his next 2 passes and record the times. This is pass 2 of him entering and leaving. And now this is pass 3 of him entering and leaving. When we do the math, we can see how long he took each pass. The last 2 passes were normal without any stopping, but on his first pass, he took an additional 42 seconds to creep by the house or even stop for a time to stare into the windows with the lights on. All this information has been coming from camera A, but there is a second camera located behind the apartment complex building, and we're going to call that camera B located here. This camera allows us to see how long it took to get from point A to point B, and between the 3 security cameras' data, it took between 35 and 37 seconds. What this means is you didn't stop or park somewhere or go into a different direction. He simply drove straight from point A to point B at regular speed. These times help us understand the DoorDash delivery window. According to court documents, 2 times are noted. One is 3:59 a.m. and the other is 4 a.m. Bringing back our passage chart, we can see that the DoorDash time of 3:59 happens after Kohberger has left the neighborhood and before he returns for his last pass at 4:04. It is possible that the DoorDash driver saw Kohberger as he was parking his car, because a timestamp of 3:59 could be reflected when he took the photo of the food at the front door instead of the time he arrived. So it is possible he witnessed Kohberger staring at the windows as he drove by.
Also, side note, the food was not, according to what I heard early on, the food from the DoorDash driver, Xana had told them to bring it to the back door. So, if that's the case, the DoorDash driver would have pulled up, went to the right side of the house, behind the house, dropped it at the slider door, and then walked back down and then around. Okay? Maybe that was something that was pretty common because there was apparently some sort of like a footpath, you know, up there to the back patio sliding glass door. But anyway, I that I don't know for sure. That's just something that was told early on.
Continuing, as the driver leaves, Xana turns off all the lights, sits on her bed, and scrolls on her phone as she eats her food. A few minutes later, Kohberger enters the neighborhood for the last time. But this time, as he drives by the home, he sees all the lights are off. At the camera B location, he turns around to head back to the residence as shown in this video. When he returns to the front of the house, he does something unusual, so much so that it's noted in the arrest affidavit. On page 6, it states, "When the suspect vehicle 1 is in front of Kings Road residence, it appeared to unsuccessfully attempt to park or turn around in the road." It goes on to say that he continued onto the intersection where he did a 3-point turn. This 3-point turn was captured on camera A, which has a timestamp of 4:06. He appears to be calm and not overly anxious with his driving. As he heads back in the direction of the residence, he takes one last look at the windows to make sure all the lights are off. As he begins to drive around the end of the apartment complex, camera B records the time of 4:07. Fast forwarding a little bit, Kohberger drives to the back parking lot away from other residences.
Now, in this 3D model, she has him backing that car up and walking across that lot to go down the hill. I don't know that he did that. I feel like he pulled around and parked at the edge of that hill. You know what I mean? And stood there and watched for a couple seconds inside the windows to make sure, everything was good before he got out of the car and went to do his thing.
He takes a few minutes looking around and sees that nobody's out and that all is quiet. He eventually grabs his things, gets out of the vehicle, and begins walking to the back of the home. At approximately 4:13 a.m., he begins to make entry. As he steps in, he takes a minute to make sure everything is quiet and that nobody is truly up. He walks to the entrance of the living room and looks around. He continues to be cautious and stands there listening. Feeling confident, he continues upstairs. As he makes his way to Maddie's room, the time is about 4:14. Meanwhile, 2 minutes later, Xana takes a break from TikTok and walks into the kitchen. Evidence shows her activity on the app stopped at 4:16. As she enters the kitchen, she's a little shocked to see the sliding glass door wide open. And at the same time, she hears a serious commotion going on upstairs. Hey everyone, I don't usually ask, but I'm building a small production company to bring you more exciting stories, and I'd love your support. If you'd like to help out and get some cool perks, or own the 3D model file I created for this animation, please send me a DM and then drop a thank you. Picking up where we left off, a source revealed that Santa's phone recorded steps and elevation change, which is how it's known she went to the kitchen and the 3rd floor. When she walked up to Maddie's doorway, she interrupted Kohberger, who had just finished an intense battle with Kaylee, who fought back violently. After a second or two, he notices her, and then she turns away. Being dark, Xana didn't realize what she was seeing other than a shadowy figure. Out of fear, she quickly leaves. A single source, unaffiliated with the media, claims Kohberger injured Xana on the 3rd floor hallway, leaving evidence of blood there. But this single source of information has not been validated by any more sources. Continuing, Kohberger, without thinking, pursues her all the way to her room, not realizing he had dropped the sheath of his knife. When he gets to the room, he attacks Xana, and the time is precisely 4:17:30. We know this because of camera A captured the sound of screaming and the thud. After attacking Xana, Kohberger focuses his attention on Ethan and attacks him while he slept. Afterwards, Kohberger must have sat down in a chair according to a report, which found blood smears on Xana's chair, perhaps from the exhaustion of what he had just done. This source also says that blood from the 2 roommates upstairs were found in Xana's room, showing that it was one person moving from one room to another. Kohberger sitting down was for less than 30 seconds. As he gets up to leave, Dylan, hearing the commotion from Xana's room, gets up out of bed and goes to her door to look out into the hallway. She freezes and sees Kohberger as he walks by and exits through the kitchen. She immediately closes and locks her door and retreats to her bed. Within 20 seconds of the encounter, she's calling and texting her roommates, but no one is responding. It takes Kohberger a minute and a half to get to his vehicle after the encounter with Dylan. But once in his car, he flees the scene at a high rate of speed and exits the neighborhood at 4:20. Dylan continues trying to reach someone in the house. And after 3 minutes of trying, Bethany wakes up in response to the calls. They converse for 3 minutes, and then Beth convinces Dylan to come downstairs. The time is now 4:26 a.m. Cautiously, Dylan walks into the hallway and through the living room. As she approaches the staircase, she can see into Xana's room and sees her laying on the floor. She then runs quickly downstairs to Beth's room, where they lock the door and for several hours continuously try contacting the other roommates. Back to when Kohberger left the neighborhood, he drove a particular route that would exit onto a road that leads straight to Washington state line. And about that same time that Dylan runs to Beth's room, Kohberger is entering Washington state. This is all part of Kohberger's pre-planning, including finding a place to stop and get rid of any evidence. This place here fits that planning. This area here, pointed out by the arrow, is a little group of trees with a small area that you can park a car on. This is what it looks like from the road. At 4:30 in the morning, while changing clothes and getting cleaned up at this location, one could feel completely safe while being able to see the headlights of a car coming from miles away. As this pivots around, you can see how this is out in the middle of nowhere, and a pre-dug hole near some of these trees would hide forever any evidence that Kohberger was trying to get rid of.
So that's the first time I ever heard that, was in this video about this little section here. I don't know anything about that. That was the first I'd heard of it.
It's important to remember that Kohberger was studying criminal behavior and the legal system. This would have motivated him to plan things to the smallest of details, like plastic on the seats to conceal DNA, or crossing state lines because the jurisdiction of one area would take hours to get assistance from the other. He's also smart enough to know that this 10-minute stop would likely never be on the radar of the authorities, especially after he crosses back into Idaho and then turns his phone back on. Let's pick back up where we left off at his 10-minute stop. He continues on with his plan, knowing that he's completely cleaned up and that there's no evidence to tie him to any of the crime if he were pulled over at this point. After getting on Highway 95 and turning south, he turns his phone back on at 4:48 a.m. This section of Kohberger's travels comes from his cell phone data extraction. Let's orientate ourselves onto this map and get a better understanding of the timing. Kohberger leaves Kings Road residence at 4:21 a.m. Just 8 minutes later, he arrives at his stopping point where he gets rid of all the evidence. After the cleanup, he then drives back into Idaho and turns his phone back on, which occurs near a town named Blaine. This was referenced in the arrest affidavit along with the next town called Uniontown. The last place to reference is where he's seen on cameras near his apartment at 5:25 a.m. Using Google tools, we can get accurate timing information. This entire route took 54 minutes. If we add the 10 minutes stopping time to that, it would be an hour and 4 minutes. Now, if you add that hour and 4 minutes to the time he left King Road, it would equal 5:25 a.m., the same time the camera captures him on the cameras near Washington State University. The last thing to compare is this part of the route, which has a reported time of 38 minutes to drive without any stopping. Bringing back the time record and adding in the second leg information of 38 minutes, we can now add that time to when he turned his phone back on, which was at 4:48 a.m. After adding the 38 minutes to that time, it gives us 5:26 a.m., nearly the same time that was captured on the campus cameras.
All right, what did you guys think of that? I thought it was pretty cool. I personally thought that it was very, very cool. Okay. Now, hold on for a second. Let me go grab something else real quick. Yeah, me too, Miss King. That was super new to me. Okay, is this it? I think this is it. Hold on. All right. Okay, now we're going to scooch over here real quick and talk real quick about Stephan Stearns. So Gavin Fish posted this video a couple days, 2 or 3 days ago, and he's talking about how oh, the trial was scheduled for July 22nd. But then he reads the document where the judge denied the motions to suppress the evidence and the cell phone from Stephan Stearns' cell phone. So hold on just a quick second. All right. And if no one in here is yet following Gavin Fish, please do. He's incredible. All right. I wanted to scooch through and find some of this stuff. This is where he begins to talk about begins to read this document.
Good argument by the defense. But if we go over to the old internets, give me a second here. This, if you guys haven't seen this, there's a link down in the description below. This is the case, the public case file. It doesn't have everything, just the stuff that's publicly available. And if we scroll down here, you will see that on the first two orders denying the defense's motions to suppress evidence were filed on the first. These have not been made public on the docket, but thanks to somebody who wants to remain anonymous, I have received a copy of one of those, which is the order denying the motion to suppress evidence obtained from the Google search warrant. So
woohoo! Thank you, Miss or Mr. Anonymous.
we're going to get into that a little bit today. Before we do, I want to show you this entry into the docket, and that is that the jury trial has been set for the 22nd of this month. 19 days away.
Yes.
And indeed, if you go up here, you will see that, I mean, it has been set for, what's the first one? May of last year, then August of last year, then February of this year, then May of this year, and then the 14th of this month, then it was reset to the 15th of this month, and now the 22nd. And we have an order on that, actually. Let me show you. Well, it's an order. This one I did download off of the public file. So criminal appearance order, that the jury trial is to begin on the 22nd of July, 2025 in courtroom 4F in front of Judge Keith Karsten. So, yeah, I mean, is it going to happen? I'm actually a little more enthusiastic that it is going to happen this time, because the judge has denied motions that would have, I guess, prevented it from happening. So it's possible that a mere, what is that, 17 months after the crime of Maddie's murder was perpetrated, we might have a trial that starts. For those of you who are wondering, I am going to do my best with my day job to ensure that I can stream this trial. It will be live streamed, and I would love to be able to watch that with you all. So we will probably be doing that. Okay, let's stop burying the lead, Gavin. Let's get on over to this document right here. This is the aforementioned order denying Mr. Stern's motion to suppress evidence obtained from the Google search warrant. Let's just read it. This matter came before the court upon the defendant's motion to suppress evidence obtained from the Google search warrant filed February 6, 2025, and corrected on April 29th, 25. The court having reviewed the motion, the state's response, the arguments presented at the hearing on April 23rd, the court file, and being likewise otherwise fully advised of the premises, finds as follows. And before we get into the finding, basically, what the argument was, if you guys will remember, is that the investigator, according to the defense, was only given very narrow access to the phone. That's what the defense says, very narrow. The prosecution argued, no, he gave approval along the way. He said, yeah, that should be okay. He gave the passcode, the whole shebang, right? So that was the argument in a nutshell. I mean, not very detailed, Gavin, but we all watched it together. If you are curious about the coverage that we've done of this case, guys, you can see if you can see all the videos we've done, and you'll be able to easily find it on my website. If you go to Maddie's case page on my website and then just scroll, I think this video right, oh, I didn't, let me bring it in so it'll fit here. You can see all of the video.
Absolutely. If you're not following, if you go to his website, you can find all these, and it's not just Stephan Stearns. He's got several different case files where you can go look at all the videos, all of the stuff that he's FOIA'd, that kind of thing. You can find everything. Photos, the evidence photo dumps from Maddie Soto's case, all that kind of stuff. But one thing Gavin Fish is really good at is being very considerate, and he doesn't post like evidentiary photos that are gruesome, or you know what I mean, triggering, so to speak. So, but anyway, I love that he does that. And you can also sign up for his Patreon and get further access to other things too. So make sure to check that out if you haven't yet.
Those that we've done here, and a lot of those videos have to do with the evidence. Okay, so in fact, here, Fruit of the Poisonous Tree, that is one that we did. Can't believe it's been since April since we've done a video on Madeline Soto. Anyway, okay, Gavin, keep burying the lead. I just want to give you guys, if you're new here, the website is a place where you can go and get a lot of stuff. Okay. Here finds as follows: analysis and ruling. Defendant contends that all evidence obtained through Google warrant must be suppressed. To support this claim, defendant makes three main arguments. 1. The Google warrant relied entirely on illegally obtained evidence. Defendant first asserts that law enforcement exceeded the scope of Mr. Stern's initial consent, retained his phone without proper authorization, and conducted a coerced midnight download. Because law enforcement used the information extracted from the searches to support the application for the Google warrant, Defendant alleges that the state cannot justify the warrant under any attenuation or independent source doctrine because the warrant was entirely built on tainted evidence and intentional misconduct. Defendant concludes that the evidence must be therefore suppressed as fruit of the poisonous tree. If you guys will remember, the fruit of the poisonous tree is a legal doctrine that any and all information that is obtained subsequent and as a derivative of, meaning directly connected to, something that was obtained illegally, is that thing that was illegal is the poisonous tree, and the stuff that happens next is the fruit of that tree, meaning no can use use. That's a very, very important legal doctrine, because we want our citizens here in the United States, including Mr. Stearns, to enjoy all the protections that the Constitution gives him. And the reason that we want that is because when, say he is convicted, when it gets to appeal, we want it to hold up under scrutiny. And the other part of that is we don't want our rights taken away if we were to be accused, especially if we were wrongly accused of a crime, right? So this is a very important legal doctrine. The defense fails to establish, the judge continues, that his searches were coerced or otherwise improper. The evidence makes clear that the defendant willfully and voluntarily unlocked his cell phone and gave it to Detective Tagler on multiple occasions and unequivocally consented to them viewing map data and documenting his search history. Even after Detective Tagler asked if a warrant is needed, defendant nevertheless consented during interviews. And this is what the prosecution contended too, right? Most importantly, defendant gave consent to law enforcement to download the cell phone and to go through the phone. A reasonable person under the circumstances would understand the scope of the consent to include access to all contents that were searched in this case, including call history and GPS data. During interviews with law enforcement, defendant was free to leave. Consequently, defendant freely and voluntarily consented to the searches, and that law enforcement did not exceed the scope of the defendant's consent. This, a reasonable person, is a very important part of the law, right? The reasonableness is a legal, I guess, doctrine. It is a bar upon which the judge has to judge the law. Would a reasonable person under the exact same circumstances believe that consent was given? So it doesn't matter if maybe Mr. Stearns didn't believe that consent was given. If a reasonable person would have believed that consent was given, that is what that's what matters to the law. The state is therefore correct in its response that law enforcement relied on information properly obtained during consensual searches of defendant's cell phone to support the affidavit for search warrant. Consequently, the warrant at issue was not tainted and was not constitutionally invalid as the fruit of illegal searches. That's part one. Before we go into part two, I want to see what you guys have to say about that. Remember, if you want me to view your comment, put a GF on it. That will highlight it on my side. So Susan Lewis says, Gavin, I believe I said more than once that the defense arguments wouldn't fly. Are you doing an I told you so neener neener? Is that what you're doing? Perfectly fine. I was very worried that the defense had a valid argument. I was very worried about it. I didn't want it to be true. I was very concerned, man. I have seen cases fall apart because of the improper and sometimes illegal searches or even just behavior of law enforcement. Not that they did it on purpose, but
Actually, I mean, with Kohberger, when Ann Taylor was um, trying to get the judge to um, throw out DNA, the DNA evidence, the IgG um, stuff, kind of the same thing. Um, but it didn't work out that way.
That, I mean, remember, law enforcement officers are not lawyers. And even if you are a lawyer, the law is so vast, it's not like you can be an expert on the law. Here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there are three parts of the Commonwealth statutes that police officers are trained on, but it's not like it's a 4-year degree on those parts of the statutes. Up, she lived in and uh, during the entire rehearsal are to where Maddie died. Kills me to know families. Yeah, I will hear JoJo's Crime Line. I do like uh, children being victims and stuff like that.
Sorry, I'm trying to get where he's back to
It does
reading.
get to you. It gets to you, and I'd like to be able to say that 100%. And that most people establish probable cause. This is this is the judge what is it, characterizing the defense's argument, okay? So next, the defense asserts that the warrant application fails to establish probable cause. To establish probable cause, a supporting affidavit for issuance of a search warrant, quote, must satisfy two elements. First, that a particular person has committed a crime, the commission element, and second, that evidence relevant to the probable criminality is likely located at the place to be searched, the nexus element. A magistrate is not required to leave common sense at the courthouse door when evaluating whether a supporting affidavit satisfies the nexus element and supports a finding of probable cause. Here, the affidavit for search warrant for defendant's Google account provided a sufficient basis for the court to determine that evidence related to CP would likely be found on defendant's Google account. Specifically, the affidavit points to the fact that defendant factory reset his phone the same day Madeline was last seen. Detective Heller also indicated that interviews of defendant were conducted and that defendant consented to a search of his phone. During the search, several files of CSAM involving Maddie were located. Further, the affidavit stated that defendant's images were stored and backed up on his Google account. Additionally, the affidavit further describes that evidence related to interference of child custody was contained within defendant's Google account. Detective Heller detailed that Madeline was reported missing by her mother on February 26th, 2024. Defendant had stated that he dropped Madeline off at Peace United Methodist at 8:40 a.m., although classes did not start until nearly an hour later. However, a license plate reader captured defendant's vehicle tag traveling away from Hunters Creek Middle School at 8:10 a.m. Madeline never showed up to school. The state is correct that at the time the warrant application was filed, it was probable that other information on defendant's cell phone prior to the factory reset was backed up to his Google account, such as GPS data, which was described in the affidavit for search warrant. Based on this ample evidence, which was relevant to the probable criminality likely located on his phone, the warrant application sufficiently established the nexus element. Consequently, the warrant application was backed by substantial evidence satisfying both prongs of Sanchez, which is the case law before. Defendants claim that the warrant failed to establish probable cause is therefore without merit. Defendant further argues that the warrant was overbroad in its time frame for searches. The warrant permitted the search of data from January 1, 2020 to present, yet according to defendant, provided no factual basis for the expansive 4-year period. However, Courts often note that CP collectors maintain their materials for significant periods of time. See U.S. v. Perrin. Here, there's evidence to support that defendant was an individual that fell into this category, given that the material was his stepdaughter and that it was located on his phone and backed up to his Google account. Accordingly, the warrant is not tainted for having an overbroad temporal scope. The court also notes that the warrant affidavit was not overly reliant on generalized and boilerplate language about Google services. The state is correct that the implementation of standard language in the search warrant related to the operations of Google LLC is helpful and relevant in the affidavit. The boilerplate language was accompanied by ample case-specific information. Okay. And the third argument from the defense was that the warrant lacked required particularity for digital searches. The judge says in his final argument, defendant contends that the warrant lacks required particularity for digital searches. Defendant avers that the warrant's authorization to search any and all stored electronic communications or files associated with the Google account is impermissibly broad in violation of the Fourth Amendment. To support this claim, defendant cites Riley v. California. However, Riley is inapposite. The devil, what does inapposite mean? Inapposite. Definition. Out of place, inappropriate. Okay. Hey, legal professionals, maybe just use common language. But okay, whatever. In Riley, the Supreme Court of the United States held that a warrantless search of a cell phone seized incident to an arrest must generally be suppressed. Riley does not address in a relevant and detailed manner how search warrants must be particularly detailed when authorizing searches of digital data. The state cites U.S. v. Lamb. In Lamb, the defendant challenged the particularity of the warrant when it sought all stored files in original format in individual files. The Northern District of New York noted that although the language does not limit the investigators to seizing only files of CP, the court noted that the actual content of the computer file usually cannot be determined until it is opened. The court held that the motion to exclude that from the trial was denied. Moreover, the court agrees with the state that even if the warrant was impermissible as overbroad, the good faith exception nevertheless applies. The good faith exception applies when a law enforcement officer acting with objective good faith obtains a search warrant and acts in accordance with the warrant and scope. Suppression of the evidence obtained is not appropriate, even if the court later determines that there was no probable cause. Well, that is horrifying. That's scary. But okay, exclusion of the evidence is appropriate in cases in which the affidavit is so lacking in probable cause that reliance on it would be unreasonable. Again, the reasonableness standard. Here, law enforcement did not provide any false or misleading information in the affidavit for search warrant. As stated throughout this order, the affidavit was not lacking in reliance, so law enforcement relying on the warrant was not unreasonable. Accordingly, the court finds that the good faith exception applies and suppression of the evidence is inappropriate. Accordingly, it is hereby ordered and adjudged that 1. Defendant's motion to suppress evidence obtained from Google search warrant is denied. Done and ordered in chambers, Osceola County, Kissimmee, Florida, the first day of July, 2025, signed by the Honorable Keith A. Karsten. That is the finding. Now, the finding is similar, I would imagine, on the other motion to suppress. When we look at the docket, it does say it's an order denying the defendant's motion to suppress evidence obtained from unlawful searches of cell phone and motion to suppress evidence obtained from unlawful seizure of the cell phone. So There might be other reasons, other case law cited. Nevertheless, both of those have been denied. And as we discussed earlier, the jury trial is set for July 22nd. As you guys know, I am a professional in two things. Number one, I'm a professional quibbler, and I am a professional waffler. I'm kind of waffling back and forth. Will the trial begin on the 22nd? I'm starting to waffle on that a little bit. Let's see what you guys are saying over here, and let's bring up a photo.
I'm pretty sure it will, but that's just wishful hoping, wishful thinking, right? So, I'm glad that the judge did not let that go through, because if it had of, like he said, there wouldn't have even been a trial. There would have been no trial. There would have not been anything, because that's what the whole trial is about, is the evidence that was found on his phone and other devices, right? So I don't know. Are you guys excited for this one? I certainly am. They say it's going to be a short one, like 4 days. That's it. So we'll find out, though, won't we? Because that's in what, 22nd. If they do opening statements on the 22nd, then that would be what, 15 days from now. If they just are doing jury selection, then it'll be a few more days. I assume that they'll take little, maybe week, like 3 or 4 days to a week for jury selection, but I don't know. Right, Miss King, yeah. He denied both the defense and the prosecution's request for a delay. Yep. So he's like, nope, we're going to do it. We're doing it. He probably wants to get on with it so that they can get on with the murder trial, you know? That would be my guess. But anyway, y'all, I'm going to scooch on out of here. Husband's been home for a little bit, and I'm going to go see what he's doing. I'm going to see if it's still raining, too. I don't know if it's still raining. Eek. I don't know. I'm going to go look. But I hope that you guys had an amazing weekend. I hope you had some incredible 4th of July fun and lots of good food. And I will, Patricia. Hey, Megan. Good to see you. Okay, Mary Lou. I'll look for it, honey. Right, it's before you go out, have to go back to school. What day do you guys start school back, Megan? Love you too, Mary Lou. What day do you guys go back to school, Megan? We go back. Oh, I got to look at the calendar again. But it's always the first one of the. Let me look. It's usually sometime in the first week of August is when they go back. Oh, the 28th. Okay. Well, I hope it starts the 22nd too. I mean, if not, you'll have to like speed watch it when you get home, right? Let me go look. The first. I'm assuming they'll start back on the 4th or 5th of August. It could be the first day of August, because sometimes they'll have them come to school on a Friday, like the first day. be on a Friday. I never understood that. I'm like, why can't you just have school start on Monday? But they've been known to have them start on a Friday and then give them the weekend and then, come back the following Monday. So weird. Yeah, Cherie, that's crazy what's going on in Texas. It's so sad. Oh, right, Megan. Try not to think about it. Eh. All right. Well, I will see you guys probably on Wednesday. I'll plan on seeing you guys on Wednesday. We'll see what we can get into then. And I think it was Kel, or I think it was Kel who said that the jury was deliberating in the preppy student murder trial. So we'll see what that happens to be. And yeah. Megan said, I like starting on a Wednesday just because the kids are so tired after a couple of days. Yeah, that's true. I mean, they get accustomed to being lazy, all summer, staying up late, getting up late, and then, having to get up at 6 in the morning or earlier for some kiddos, depending on when they, have to get up to get ready for school. Or like my kiddo, the school bus runs. She's like one of the first pickups in the mornings. And the bus driver stops at the end of the driveway at about 7:15. So, yeah. Most days we're rushing to get out the door on time. So, all right. I will see you guys. I'll plan on seeing you guys then on Wednesday. All right. You guys have a great rest of your night tonight. And I hope you have a great day tomorrow. I love you. Bye, everybody.